Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how does he know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, they were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Danny Guru.
Jennifer, it's wonderful to see you. How are you?
I'm fantastic today. How are you?
Pretty good. We had Easter off, so it was a nice little break.
Yes, it was a nice little break. It was a nice little relaxing day. So we hope everyone enjoyed their Easter with whatever it is that you did.
Yep, indeed. I hope everyone had a nice time. Did some Easter egg hunts or whatever it was that y'all do.
Yep.
All that good stuff. I'm really excited about tonight's topic.
I know you are. It's going to be a very interesting one, and it's definitely needed that we need to go over these charts. So
yeah.
If you guys don't know, we're going to be diving into Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yep.
But we're going to be doing some comparing with his father and JFK.
Yep. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He runs the Children's Defense Fund, and so he's been going after vaccine makers for a long time. He's been a lawyer forever. He looks like a Kennedy. You can't miss it. And he grew up in that environment. And he recently threw his hat in the ring. He just had to. He has to throw his hat in the ring because what's happening won't get fixed.
Right.
And he is the type of cult of personality that would rival what happened with the sensation with Bernie Sanders back in 2016 before he was robbed that spot by Hillary and or Donald Trump. Cult of personality. When I went to the mandates thing in Washington D.C. Almost 2 years ago. Or a year and a half ago, he was the keynote speaker there, at least one of that big headlines, and the crowd goes wild for him because he's a freedom fighter.
Well, we need that. I mean, I'm cautious about anybody who's really on the main stage.
There should
but
be.
It is to the point where we need people in there to do something, because it all needs to come down.
Yeah, so he's just this beautiful cult of personality. And what makes this man decide to run? They did a poll. He's lagging, of course, because he just announced his candidacy. But my guess is he'll make it onto various things, and we will see a run for their money. We don't know, but it's Robert Kennedy Jr.'s time, I would say. And he's got some very amazing things in his chart that particularly suit him to this particular task. It's amazing. Yes.
Well, before we dive into tonight's chart, you guys know the drill. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this out. Put it in your stories and tag us in it. And if you have any comments, drop them in, and we will make sure I will make a mental note to stop and respond to the comments if y'all have any questions and everything like that. So you guys know what to do.
Yep, they know what to do.
I have to reiterate it.
So let's pull up these charts and see what we got going on. They're going to be good. Did you get the wheel, Jennifer?
I did get the wheel.
The one with the mutation and stuff around the wheel on the outside?
Yes.
Cool. We'll go to that in a minute. So Robert Kennedy, hopefully people recognize the face. This is like a great picture of him. And you can see the Kennedy resemblance. I mean, it's just all there. He's got a speech impediment. He overworked his open throat. He's got a lot of action on there. So anybody who knows this man knows that he's got a thing that makes him speak sort of strange. and we can go all the way back to a point in time and find out it was some misuse of his throat that he just didn't understand what attention he was or wasn't attracting, and he just didn't get it. But here we have a person on the cross of the laws, and yes, and it's a foundational cross. It's a 1-3, so he's deeply investigating what 60 and 56 say to investigate. And the thing is, those things, they repeat again in his nodes. So if you look to the left, you'll see 60 and 56 again in his nodes, in total harmony to his profile, resonance to his profile. So his walk through this life was always going to be, the nodes basically carry us along the life. The nodes are amazing. We could do more with just the nodes. The nodes, they can be just as important as, they are just as important as the sun, earth. The nodes say, in a body graph, they say, hey, we're the genetic structures. They're all genetic structures coming up to the surface to be something reliable, like we expect the genome to do. And up to the surface comes 60 and 56, part of the cross of laws that says, I'm going to basically push through the limit. I'm going to transcend this limitation. So the nodes, what they do is they take us along a trajectory, and they use our body's energy to do it. So whatever's going to happen in his life, his trajectory will always be one of being limited and transcending the limitation, being limited and transcending the limitation. And he's done that his whole life. He became part of a black sheep when he came out and started saying there's problems with the vaccine schedule. There are issues with it. He was the first one to bring suit against the FDA to say, okay, finally, you have to demonstrate that you have to demonstrate to us that you've made some kind of a test on the entire schedule. Has anyone ever looked at the entire schedule? What could it do? And so, that made him a black sheep in the family. They didn't like that. But as a good 1-3 would do, they have to stand by their convictions. That third line of the values, gate 50, line 3 says, I'm going to end up standing by my convictions. Very, very much so. It's about the values that he will then stand behind. And it's in a definition. And then when you go across the aisle, those nodes that are in a fourth line, they are in total harmony to his personality. And they say, I'm going to carry all the details that solves the mystery. I'm going to carry the details that solves the mystery. And guess what else I'm going to do? I'm going to spit them out. Fourth line. I'm going to externalize that. I'm going to influence you with what is it I have discovered in my investigation. So it's such harmony between his personality sun earth and his personality nodes. The nodes are saying the kid is helpless, but to just be carried along by the nodes. I have the manifesting generator channel in my nodes, and then I have part of the cross of planning on the other side. I'm enthusiastically focused on the details of the power I can put out right now. So what did my mother get? She got an enthusiastic kid that couldn't be stopped and was constantly trying to externalize his power, whatever that was. I can move a rock. I can
do that.
Oh yeah, I can break a stick. Look, I can run a mile, whatever it was. And those nodes pull us, and they use our body's caloric energy to do so. I mean, we burn calories. The calories creates an energy. That energy is measurable in joules and BTUs, meaning we can turn it in a formula into work and velocity and momentum and all the things that are Newton and Galileo. And so these nodes take that and they requisition that, and they say, okay, we're using this energy to move this man along the line of furthering the values of transcending limitation and the details and the mysteries that are solved when you do. And what did he do? He shared it. His nodes require that he share it. His personality earth requires that he shares it. It's something that again, who was the one we did when I was Robert Malone, the one they took down? Remember?
Yeah, yes, they did. But it's on Rumble, guys. It's
on Rumble.
It's uploaded on Rumble. So
it was so good.
It didn't last long on YouTube.
Remember I said he was the bane of their existence?
Yes.
Because he had similar stuff going on. A simple design.
What was his incarnation cross?
I totally forget. I just remember it's coming back to me right now, and I just remembering that he is this man can't be bridled. He can be knocked down, but he's a third line, so he's always going to get back up. So Robert Kennedy constantly was getting knocked down in the media and the press, and
Right angle cross of the law.
So the laws the same. Look at 1-3, same 1-3 profile. They're flipped. They're flipped. The 56 and the 60 are on the left, where his is on the right. But the cross of the laws. So again,
I thought it was similar.
It was wicked similar, and they both have that channel of mutation in their body graph. And so this man, I got to read his lines because it's all in these lines. So 60, line 1, that's his sun position on his personality side, driving force going into him, says limitation. I will accept that. Acceptance of limitation is the first step to transcendence. And the line is called acceptance, the ability to maintain inner harmony when confronted by external limitations. That was him all day long. He was always doing that. And he was always doing what the down arrow says as well. A restless energy when confronted with external limitation. That's a detriment. Ra Uru has this in detriment. And he loved it. He loved your detriments. So basically, you can see his restlessness in his every time he gives an interview.
The detriments are the lower arrows, correct?
The arrows that point down. Yeah. At one point, I remember we were hearing it. We were talking about it in its expressions, its higher expression, lower expression. It's not really appropriate that we call it a low expression. What would happen inside of him is called a restlessness. So his acceptance would have to go through a restless process. Well, if you're restless and you're a generator buzzing with energy, and you've got these two channels that are mutative and tribal, sooner or later, you're going to generate the energy to transcend that. The restlessness is what wrote the book, The Real Anthony Fauci. Did anyone read that book? If anyone,
no, I never read it, but I can now understand how that energy works with the restlessness,
right.
Because you want to get rid of that restlessness, so you really are like contemplating on different ways to break through that.
As you grow, what happens is the maturity says, so as a kid, he was just restless at times and whatever, would do what all generators do and get frustrated. But then as he matures, they start to learn that, hey, when I notice this restlessness, that's my signal to do something. There's something I haven't transcended. And he wouldn't necessarily have that language for himself, but he would have that way. It's in his nodes to find the details that solves the mystery that creates the law. To find the details that solves the mystery that creates the law, that transcends the limitation. So it's really funny that the cross of the laws is generated. Because if you look at this cross, on the right-hand side, you've got a gate 60, right? Personality sun. And on the left-hand side, you've got an earth in line in gate 3. 60 and 3 make a channel. And that channel makes a generator. If you have that channel, you're some form of a generator. Right? You can't have. So the law is generated business. And what does it say? The law says we must find a stimulating way to build the trust so that we can speak the story. We must find a way to transcend the limitation that gets in the way of that story, the truth, by the way. We must have the deep 50, gate 50, the deep cauldron of values that will sustain in the face of adversity. In this case, in the face of restlessness, he's sustained. And then gate 3 says, we must be ready for the moment of transcendence where confusion is transcended into order. Order in the court. This is, and he was a lawyer. Order in the court. He's a unique person to be able to say that and smack that.
He's a lawyer. I wonder how aware he is to the bullshit.
Yeah, to the BS about the two Americas.
Yes.
I found a great way of describing that. And he may be he's probably well aware of at least some of it. He must be.
Well, if he's a 1-3, he's probably done some investigating at times.
Yeah, as soon as he paid his federal taxes a time or two, I bet you he investigated.
Yeah, and he is a Kennedy, and there is something about the Kennedy family as it pertains to battling that side of the government.
Yeah. Well, the Kennedys started off rum running. They were bootleggers. The eldest the father of the Kennedys, so his grandpa and beyond, they were bootleggers, wicked successful. So some of that business wasn't very nice.
Yes.
That means some people undoubtedly met their demise up against the Kennedys, and the Kennedys most likely lost some of their people demised against the forces that would be against them, because bootlegging was illegal to do it too much, or I forgot, because there was a prohibition at that point in the early 1900s. So anyways, I'm going to now go to 56 line 1. So 50 line 1 is just this acceptance, restlessness that transcends into acceptance. Okay, that's 60. So he's driven by that. And that's a foundational line. So that's a way he investigates. His restlessness is causing him to investigate. And then 56, line 1. So 56, the wanderer, the gate of stimulation, the ability to share a collective, abstract retelling of stimulating things that then put a whole story together. That's part of the law. Put the story together. We can't make a law out of nothing. What'd you do? You threw some sticks in the air and it means something? Well, tell us the story so we can see if it fits into the law.
Yes.
And it's got to be stimulating. He has done a reasonably good job of stimulating America. He's been doing it for decades. Well, I mean, he's a Kennedy, so he's got an advantage, but that's the deal. And this is called quality, practical sense that even short-term activities should be of value, the expression of practical ideas that have value. So it's a drive to express practical. That's the law. So the foundation of the law as to how we're going to speak it is it's got to have things that connect together, that even if they're short-term linkage, it's got to have value. Hey, let's put this law with this law and this value with this value. Now we have an overall law. We have a value that says, let's protect the kids. We have a value that says, let's build stronger walls. We have a value that says, let's dig the stuff out of the quarry and work together on all that. Okay, the law is we will work on such and such a day to dig the stone out of the quarry to build the walls to protect the children, linking together values that creates an overall law. And so, and he's tribal. Look, he's got that tribal definition in him from 27 to 50. Again, part of that defense circuit. And what's he name everything? Defense this, defense that, defense, the tribal defense circuit. You got to love that. And he doesn't know. And he's driven to support the community. We's driven to do this. So these things are in a definition. It makes them on all the time. Not all, but the ones that we're talking about here. And 3 of his 4 gates are in a definition, meaning they're always on. So what was the thing he had the hardest time with? Linking together the various things, the various values that will then be put together into something that has a greater value. That was his thing. Quality. The quality of what I'm linking together has to have value. And so what happens? He gets restless. He then figures out what he needs to say. He's got nodes that drive him towards all the details. And he writes an almost 1,000-page book of single-spaced text called The Real Anthony Fauci. And
Did you read that book?
No one can read that book except readers. I'm not a reader like that. I'm never going to get through that thing. But it's
open head centers.
Yeah, you open head centers. Read that stuff and let us know, because of all the people that have read it, and there have been it was New York bestseller list for like 16 weeks, and it reads like what a prosecutor's manual for how to basically prosecute somebody. This person. This is the full. No one needs a case. They just need to decide to do it because the whole case is already detailed in the book. He's a candidate. He was in with all of it. He saw all of it unfold, and because he must be a tribal lawgiver, he had to break with the family. We're becoming more aware, right?
Yes.
And so each new generation is willing to do, potentially, in his case, was willing to do things even when it put him as the black sheep in the family. And all third lines are martyrs. So you're going to do that again. You're going to do it again. You're going to make a mistake again. You're going to whatever. So he had his share of talkings to from his family, but what to do? He's a real thorn in everyone's side that wants him to shut up. He can't. this cat and Robert Malone, man, they're practically kissing cousins. They're like, they're so close to the same thing in that way. So 50 line 3, when we get over to, actually pull up the wheel. That wheel, now the wheel, yes. So around the outside. So his sun earth, that which comes out, the most, that which we know the most is we have with 60 and 56. Well, 56 is in the quarter of civilization. It's down near the bottom, and it is, it's over to the right. It's still in 56 is just
Right
going
here.
into Leo. Yeah. So that's the quarter of civilization. So his 56, which says quality, there must be practical purposes and there must be a practical value, expression of practical ideas that have value. He's guaranteed to start making the law that is for civilization. And 60 is across the way. So if you go all the way directly across, that's in mutation, in the quarter of mutation. Hi, I will bring something mutatively new to change everything that transcends an old value, an old limitation, and I'm going to bring it into the cross of civilization, and I'm going to start telling everyone about it. So this cat that was why I wanted this thing up, to just show you that he's grounded when he is in service and sharing the value of all the ideas that come together to create a new value system, a new law altogether. He's at home when he's sharing that in a stimulating way, and the man's always willing to speak. He's always willing to speak. He's really good at it. That's a seasoned open throat person who figured out, I don't need to attract any attention. Bah humbug. I'll figure it out on my own. And then suddenly he relaxes into himself. So the mutative change that is there for civilization. I mean, we can count on that out of Robert Kennedy. And if he was a not self being and a whatever and a shyster and a shylark, we couldn't count on any of this. He wouldn't be living out his cross. He's currently living out his cross.
Yeah, I would say he is.
Yeah. So when we go to his sun earth on the other side, gate 50 and then gate 3. Oh, you're going to love this. So 50, driven by the sun. Notice gate 50 is in the spleen. So it's in a defined center, part of a definition where there's a channel.
Yep.
This is the channel of preservation, the tribal lawgiver that knows instinctively what to care for and what to nurture. And it's the channel of preservation, part of the defense circuit, a guarantee that he will be a defender of the truth. Defenders of the truth, Children's Defense Fund. That was one of his things. We are the defenders of the truth. It was just, I grabbed that URL, by the way. I own it. Defenders of the Truth. It's wicked cool. But so that's gate 50 is about this becoming this instinctual awareness of what values are needed, what responsibility to take on. When have I taken on too much responsibility? A healthy fear of taking on too much responsibility and a healthy concern about not taking on enough.
Yeah.
So he found a balance.
I was just going to say there's that balance.
He found the balance. And again, the investigator with those nodes that drive him to transcend the limitation of not knowing the details of the mystery. He's always transcending not knowing the details of the mystery. As soon as he gets restless with all of that, he sits and writes a book. A big one. There's no shortage of words ripping out of this man. It's open head, open eyes.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's all those open centers.
Yes, and the nodes in his body graph are forcing his fingers to start typing to relieve the freaking pressure of the restlessness. The nodes are driving the use of the energy in his body to make the mind work and da-da-da. And look at his variable. That's my variable. So his personality side, go ahead.
I was going to say, in his profile being a 1-3, where you build things up and tear things down.
Yes.
I could see the writing of the book as part of tearing things down.
Tear it down. Yes. Basically, this man could have delivered that famous line that I forget which, it was Ronald Reagan that said it. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, when the Berlin Wall came down back in the 80s. But yeah, tear down the system. Just tear it down. And the real Anthony Fauci, if it really gained a lot of traction, like Moore, would tear so many things down. He exposed everything. and the media wouldn't cover it, of course. So Gate 50, this tribal lawgiver that we adore, it's called the cauldron, the gate of values. It's the value of historical continuity, whose traditional values serve and enrich the present and the future. So it's about taking the past, creating the value through stimulating others in the stories that are told, to then literally come up with the values through this cauldron mechanism. We have a genetic mechanism that acts as a cauldron, constantly stirring up the values that will ultimately support the human tribe, that will support what's being shared, that will support what's being transcended, that support what's now about to get put into order. I keep those are all keynotes. I keep keynoting his incarnation cross. And so Gate 50, this cauldron that knows how to put together the historical values for the present and the future into the now and the future, is splenic. It's deeply survivally aware. It's our first human intelligence. It's been with us for a long time. It's our most sophisticated human intelligence, is all fired up through this Gate 50. That whole spleen is given life through Gate 50 and its connection to the sacral, and he's got the whole channel. So again, the law has been generated here. And it's called adaptability. It's a very exalted line. Oh, look, it's exalted in his body graph. It's an up arrow. The arrow, right? The arrow next to Gate 50 is pointing up.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's exalted. It's called adaptability, and it's about the moon. So this is a quick moving thing. Is exalted, that when unable to make it alone, he will naturally align himself with nurturing and protective forces. Nurturing and protective. That gate is speaking to 27 across the way. The gate of nurture. Values that must nurture. That's what this channel brings us. Values that must nurture. If it's in the not self-being, it brings us the lack of values that must take a bunch of stuff so that they can nurture themselves, damn to hell with everyone else. With a lot of energy to do that. So it's awareness that to maintain one's principles and values, the support of others is necessary. And so what does he do? He comes up against the limitation, and he's like, he's been garnering support from the whole community ever since the pandemic started. And now he's got so much support that he's going to run for president. He wouldn't have done that without all of this. He did all the talk shows. He made rounds everywhere. He wouldn't be doing that if he did. So he found the logical support of things, and suddenly it becomes the value. So now when they knock him down, as long as we support him or whatever, as long as he gets that support from his base, his family, his home, right, however it works, and he feels he's doing the right thing, this is one of those crosses and one of these nodal configurations where right is might. Right is might. This cat could play kamikaze and fly his plane into a warship. The right is might.
Well, I did research on his book. He sold over 1 million copies. It's a bestseller on Amazon, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, US Today, Publishers Weekly, and it even says sold over 1 million copies despite censorship boycotts in bookstores and libraries, and hit pieces against the author. So even as much backlash as he got, because they're going to do that and try to suppress the book, it's still supersede. It's got 100% rating of recommending to other people. So I would say that's a big enough boost for someone to say, okay, I'm on the right path.
I'm on the right path. Absolutely. And
as much as he's going against the system, it's showing that he's got that support.
Dude, you don't have that many hundreds of pages, standard single space in a full-on book. It's like the Bible. You know what I mean? Hold it real steady so you don't lose your place. You don't have that without getting to all the things, pointing out who was taking the money, where the money was going, who was peddling the influence, the ascent of pharma's peddling of influence inside of our lawmaking body, and the awareness that there is no mystery anymore. He had all the details and the mystery is solved, and I'm not going to be limited. I'm going to Gate 56 tell you a stimulating story. I'm going to tell you a lot of stimulating story, and I'm going to link together all the facts about the real Anthony Fauci, and it's really about the real complex out there that Anthony Fauci's only part of. And so everything, the money, who was getting it, how it started to creep into politics, how it took over the law, and now this man, as a wrecking ball, just like Robert Malone, has got to come in and try and fix it. He's trying to do that. He can't persevere. He can't put his head down at night if he doesn't think of himself as trying to do something about it.
Guys, I just put a copy of the book in the comments. It's on scribed.com. If you want to read that, you should be able to get 2 months free.
Yeah.
I'll put my referral link.
Anybody who does like to read, I would strongly recommend it.
Yeah, that should open up. Scribed is better than Kindle, in my opinion.
Yep. Scribe is pretty good. I haven't done Kindle much.
I love Scribe.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As I was counting through the numbers in his things, I noticed he had a very even-handed number, and they're all complementing this profile of his. So, unbeknownst to Mr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he was always going to be driven to get through all the details that solves the mystery and externalize that in a stimulating way. And when that book came out, it was all the roar. Those hit pieces were coming fast and furious. Anybody who's awake knows, hey, when you see that many hit pieces coming fast and furious, we need to know what's in there. Because obviously, they don't like it, then it must be good. It must be important, and it really, truly was. And then the last thing I'll point out about him is a couple things, just the variable. So that arrows on the right are pointing to the right where he's open and receptive. So that's going to add to all that restlessness, because open and receptive isn't strategic. It doesn't know what to do with a restless energy. The law says he's got to wait to transcend it and put it into order. And along come his nodes, and they drag him along a trajectory that's guaranteed to make its way to all those details and the solving of the mystery and the solving of the details and the externalization of all that previously unknown knowledge. That's his job. Get the knowledge discovered and get it out there. And if someone doesn't like it, tear down that foundation of them and do it over again and sustain at it. Third line, sustain. They're anarchists, become the anarchist. He is, just what you read alone lets you know that to the system, he's deeply considered an anarchist. He's dangerous. Yeah. He's a Kennedy, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? He doesn't have a lot of clout in today's world as it relates to what the Kennedys once were. That could all change. He's on the cross of the laws. It guarantees mutation, and it's generated.
Right.
That could all change. Donald Trump wasn't going to win in 2016. Remember, just couldn't happen. Boom, it happened. The cross of Eden said.
They never thought it would happen.
I didn't either.
They never thought that she would lose. Thank God.
But notice what he did. He sustained. Donald sustained that. And remember the condemnation he was getting, right? You're this, you're that, all the stuff.
Oh, it was a witch hunt before. It became a witch hunt after. It's been a witch hunt ever since, which should tell you that's a lot of money. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of lies to keep up with. That's a lot of effort. So why do they want to suppress him so much?
And the same can be asked of Robert F. Kennedy. You read that review. They've just numerous hit pieces. He was censored. By the way, he was fully deplatformed from YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
Oh, I don't doubt it. That's the point. I mean, as much effort as they go into to suppress the information, switch the narrative on whatever news station you're watching, all of that, at the end of the day, not one of them is not guilty. I mean, they're all pointing fingers at each other. They've got 3 pointing back. Everyone in that is guilty of something.
Yeah.
And what they don't want people to see is what's on Epstein's flight list.
Right. What's behind the veil.
They were all involved in that.
I promise you, this particular Kennedy has some notions, and he's got pieces of a puzzle for that whole puzzle. That if guys like he and maybe 50 other people that all have their own individual pieces all got in the same room, they would piece together that puzzle the rest of the way. But then again, the flight logs will piece it together too, which they'll have to release. But back to his variables. So all that open receptivity would just work through his restlessness until finally the strategicness on the left-hand side would smash it out into the world. Everyone saw Robert Kennedy through the arrows on the left. They see him as busy and active. He's got a sharp, keen brain. He's got a sharp mind. That's how they see Robert Kennedy. They see clearly. But when they dig into his personal life and be like, Robert, let's come up with something strategic, he doesn't always know what to do. He's got to wait till he transcends the moment. He's got to wait till it's generated. The world has gone so far downhill that he has generated his response. He has taken his gate 44. The most important things in his body graph are all connected to definitions. And gate 44 off the spleen is fearful. It's fearful of the destruction of our species. It's just an inbred instinctual fear that we can go extinct. And all it wants to do is called coming to meet. It wants to bring people together to meet strategically and instinctually to keep the continuity of our human tribe going. Otherwise, we're going to vaccine and glyphosate ourselves to death and this and that and sickness and pharmaceutical drugs. America is a sick country. Obesity, this, that. That's not our fault. That was done to us by a complex determined to leverage our energy into their profits. It's just awful is what all that is. So that's what those arrows would have done. Is gate 44 is kicking in him. He's aware of it. And he's got a gate 29 and he's got a gate 39. I love his 39. Moon. Oh, this is so good. So 29 in him, just real quick, says, I'm going to finally commit to something. It's the energy to say yes and enter into a commitment and see it through. It's the energy to say yes. And so it showed up in him. And then look at his moons, 27 and 39. You're going to love this. So 27-2, the natural nurturer. He naturally can't bear the thought of not nurturing as soon as he feels called into it. Let's nurture this value that brings the new law, that crushes the old way and transcends the limitation. And I have to tell it. I'm the one that tells the story. I have to tell him the story in a stimulating way. I have to piece it together. Give all the salacious details so that people know the truth. That's being called out of him because it's second line. Self-sufficiency, the obvious law that to give one must have. And as soon as he had enough strength, he was out giving his power to care. Hey, what you doing? I'm called to what? I care about this. Well, dude, it's a lot of trouble. I don't care. I'm called. And then 39, it's in the exaltation. Both of these are exalted. Fully exalted. Let me read this one. The strength to nurture and the power to care, period. So when this is called out of him, he has the strength to nurture and the power to care, connected to a definition that brings us the law. Driven. Now he's driven to do that, and that can only be brought out of him when it's a call. But it's in his moon, so he's driven. It's like the moon is always driving around us and driving us to move with what it says. 39-2, the provocateur, provocation. This is the gate of obstruction, provocation, obstructing things, get in the way, knock it down. It's also in a second line. The value of obstruction and provoking analysis, assessment, and reevaluation. That's what this does. It's an individual mutative process because it's individual, and it guarantees that I will provoke you, and we will then see what gets shaken loose, and then we will reassess. Oh, sorry, you're too much of a baby, and you cry every time I provoke you, and you do hit pieces on me. Well, guess what? I'm a generator. I'm about to generate a new law on your ass, and it's not going to be pretty. This man is the bane of their existence, just like Robert Malone. Don't tell him no. He couldn't stop if he wanted to. And that, so the 39 line 2 is called confrontation. And this is him. He confronts everyone. I saw his interview with Alan Dershowitz. He confronted the crap out of him. He beat the tar out of him in that interview, in a way. confrontation, the instinctual, notice it says instinctual to go along with his spleen, and direct assault of obstacles, the energy to provoke through direct assault. He's driven for that. And only when his values of what he needs to care for is called out of him does then get called the energy as a generator to generate a direct frontal assault. Screw you, baby, we're coming in the front door. We're coming in the front door. You know what I mean? Right now, you know, I'll let you know we're coming. It's a direct frontal assault. So what has he been called in to make a direct frontal assault upon recently? He threw his hat in the ring to become president.
Yeah.
This was called out of him as a form of a drive that would then, again, solve the mystery with all the details that creates the law, that gives the nurture and tells the story that finally implements transcendent of the limitation. We're limited. We have a sucky body politic. It's incredibly limited. It's limiting all of us into our early graves, some of us. He wishes to transcend that. He's called into it, and he's acting like a Kennedy with it all. And we shall see where that goes. So this
he's already ruffling some feathers. When I did a search on him earlier today to pull up a picture, you know, some of the headlines like ABC News is some experts fear rise in medical misinformation. Like that's my tip. That's my tip to watch, because
yes,
if it starts becoming
any other headlines? Just they'll all be good. They'll all be good hit pieces, every one of them.
Yeah, there's some other ones. I'm not going to read them all, but that's just what tips me off, like just watching it, because they'll especially when it comes to that topic, and they don't want you to know. They don't even want you to know that you can heal yourself.
Right.
Basically.
Don't, and here's a man championing that exact stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he has a lot to do with wanting to help the kids. So,
well, as a tribal lawgiver, one would expect no less. You know what I mean? Right. This man can't help but to do that. He was given a decent upbringing somewhere along the way, because he seems to have become himself. And when he gets that generator frustration, all it really does is empower his feeling of being limited and restless. So restlessness and frustration go hand in hand. So generator response, good generator, go be a muckraker. Third lines are great muckrakers, and first lines are studying and investigating what's going to get muckraked. And so it's just, he's perfect to drive the machine crazy. They will hate this man like they hate Donald. But they can't be quite as mean to him as Donald, because this man's very classy. You're not going to catch him with any tweets about whatever. He's factual. He's a lawyer. He puts out factual stuff. By the way, the real Anthony Fauci was loaded with so many details about all of the nefarious ongoings of how we got to this point in time that many of them are criminal. If you put something in a book and then publish it, that's against the law. If it's a lie, do you know what it's called? It's called libel. You can be totally sued for that. You could lose your whole fortune from that if the libel is severe enough. You can't slander and libel others. And
when did that book come out?
Over a year ago.
That's what I'm saying. Like, well, yeah.
How pissed can they be, Jennifer? No one has ever tried to sue this man. They haven't done anything. The real Anthony Fauci, and which really about the real uncovering of stuff that goes on behind the scenes from this political point of view that he has a unique viewpoint of as a Kennedy, and he's seen it, and then he attests to it. He puts it in a book. They should have. If they had a lawsuit, news would be leading with that.
Well, yes,
but they don't.
No, they don't. They're busy with Donald right now.
Well, but they've had over a year to attack this man, and all they ever did was attack the man. They never went after the book. Dude, we live in a litigious world of laws. That if there was true defamatory libel.
Well, they do it by putting it in the headline by saying just what I read earlier about the misinformation. some experts fear. I mean, that's how they do it. It's they just drop the word misinformation, medical misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
They'll throw that banner up on Facebook. Fact check, you know.
Which just makes me read it more, because we know how they are liars at this point. That we live in a sea of liars. They're after a thing that is really
It's a show.
It's a whole crap show. So yeah, this cat is called into the provocation that just says a direct frontal assault is the best way to provoke.
Mm-hmm.
And with it, we will provoke reassessment. Robert will help the nation provoke reassessment if we're lucky. He's got the energy to do it. So let's take a look at.
Yeah, we're 45 minutes in.
Cool. Let's take a look at where this man came from. That's his father. So his father gave him basically everything he had open, except an open head and ajna, but that's okay. His mother, someone filled it in. So here's his father that comes along. He's got this powerful ego, and he's a 4-6. So he and his son's profiles are in complete harmony with each other. The 1-3 is in total harmony to the 4-6. When Robert was born, Robert Sr., the dad here, he would have just been so protective over this young man with all this tribal definition he has as well. And then he would have found that I've got to let my boy find his own way. So Robert Kennedy was on the cross of contagion, and he's a 4th line in his profile. So this man was guaranteed to talk. And look what he's got in common with his boy. Look at the nodes on the right-hand side and that moon. So the moon is driven to be part of the moon, and the nodes both have a gate 60 in it, and they're both in total harmony with his son, and they're all about transcending limitation and coming up with a new law. So his father, as a attorney general, was his motion through the life was a guarantee that he would be in some kind of law-giving position, which would be right for him. He's a manifesting generator, so he moved quickly. He was emotional, so we know he had his ups and downs.
Right, emotional waves.
Yep, and so we don't know what all that came out on him, but he was wicked connected to his son. They connected in several places, and so I just look at this and I see that his dad gave him all the ego authority he needed to know that he could do whatever he needed without an ego. That's the thing. You grow up with an open ego and you don't get empowered, you think you're worthless. That open ego plays that awful game on you where it starts to say, am I good enough? Do I need to compete? Am I doing the right things? Do people see me as I'm smart, intelligent, strong, whatever it is? And his father would have dispelled all of that through his ability to basically, his dad was about, let's start this experience and stay in it. And it's my creative endeavor. And my nodes guarantee that I will find some form of leadership, unexpected influence. That's what the nodes say. I will find unexpected influence in ways that garner new values for new laws. That's what his nodes say. And that's what they did. Unexpectedly, Robert F. Kennedy Sr. did not have a life path that was about to have a president cousin that put him in the place as the Attorney General of the United States of America. That's the DOJ, Department of Justice. Yeah. That's all this guy. And that's why they killed him. They killed him because this man contagiously was able to garner everyone else's attention through what he could stimulatingly say, because he's got a gate 56, and he would stimulating tell the story because that's in his nodes, and he would contagiously tell them all about the stuff that he can contribute. He was able to contribute. He was going to bring down some major players. He thought those two were about the business of trying to retransform America back into its de jure status. They were white hat workers. I mean, they had their black hat stuff. I don't know how deep it went, but they didn't like it.
No,
because they fought against it and they were killed for it. So a powerful manifesting generator with this beautiful ego and an emotional awareness that when he approved of his boy had all the power and authority to know his identity, not need to look for love and direction, have an outlet to pour that ego willpower in a way that was emotionally clear. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. got clarity from his father. And when the ego being imparts clarity onto the open ego, open emotional being, that's some really clear stuff. Because Robert Jr. was open to it. Robert Jr. is the recipient of his father's clarity. And his father had some incredible clarity. And shazam.
It makes sense why he's in the path that he's in.
It totally makes sense. I want to get this. I want Robert to see this, Robert Jr. Dude, you got to see this. This is you. And then I need to tell you what it is to be a generator, dude. You need to know this is your genetic matrix, boss. It's what you can't help but to be these things. So let's look at John F. Kennedy. So right away, he's a projector. So it sort of makes.
Yeah, I noticed that 3-5.
3-5. So here's another sustainer. This man is going to sustain, and he's a rebel rouser. And that 3-5. These ones are the great heretics. That fifth line says, the heresy I bring is about my dedication to the values and principles that, whether they're unpopular or not, I'm heretically bring something new and mutative. I'm going to bring it. And if I can't bring it, I'm going to tear it down. And look, he's on the cross of planning. We know what planning does. Planning makes the plans that keep the tribal constructs feeding the children. That's what planning does. It's about being, and he's got enthusiasm in the sun and the earth. So enthusiastically, he would be a trial and error enthusiast, trying this, trying that, bumping into things, being an anarchist. He was the first Catholic president. That alone was anarchy. Yes. And so
well, and just his ties with Marilyn Monroe and a lot of things. He did things different for back in that time.
They had great deal of recognition about various things, and he's a projector, so he's designed to recognize things. And he basically kept up with his brother in that he has almost all left-facing arrows, so he's far more strategic. And as a projector, strategic projector with a channel of community as your definition, that's an ego and a solar plex center with a ton of clarity and a ton of power. This man always kept his commitments, and he had the authority to do so. So again, the similarity between these two and what got given to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., what got given to Robert Jr., again, was this ego and the solar plex. The solar plex comes to tribal clarity about how are we going to support the tribe, and that speaks directly to the tribal definition in Robert Jr. Speaks directly to it. Yeah, it's like, yeah, Unc, let's do that because I have this unconscious definition that says I want to nurture something I care deeply about that seems to have values that make the tribe survive, that nurtures the children. I want to nurture the children. Uncle, I want to nurture something that I care deeply about. I want to get all the details about that too. And Unc comes along and he's like, he'll do anything. And he's like, he must have given Robert many of opportunities to basically be at a thing, do a thing, be part of the thing. Who knows how much John F. Kennedy actually interacted with Robert? I mean, he's his uncle. So unless they lived in the same apartment buildings type thing or whatever, it's not like they were necessarily daily buddies, but they could have been. I don't know. All I know is that which Robert Kennedy Jr. could have felt confrontational about, not knowing what to confront, feeling afraid of confrontation, having an open ego that doesn't know what it is to value, using his throat to attract attention, to prove he can value certain things and has the right ideas. This was things that he would have, his not self, Robert Jr.'s not self would have fallen into, with the exception when he probably did fall into plenty of that. But the thing is, his uncle and his father both stuck an emotional ego into him.
Yeah.
He didn't have to worry about that. He was the recipient of his uncle's incredible trial and error wisdom in an ego-generated way. He was the recipient of emotional clarity over what work needs to be done. And his father was the recipient of his father's emotional clarity over what experiences to enter into. What experiences to enter into, what values and community morals to basically support, what to enter into, what to support. These two men stuck that in him. Again, him being the uncle, it would have been less, but it didn't matter. It was enough. they stuck this in him, and he's living that out today. So he is promulgating the genetic continuity of his uncle and his father right before our very eyes by the mere fact he even chose to run for president. He's got no real standing to run for president other than his name. He hasn't been out there in the politics scene, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He wasn't no Joe Biden that could, was a swamp rat forever. So you know what you're going to get.
Right.
You go back to
Great way to put him.
yes. So these two guys were anti-swamp rats, and you go back to Robert Kennedy Jr., and you'll see he's the opposite now of a swamp rat, because that open ego and that open solar plex center were nurtured, and the rest of them were nurtured because together the three of them defined all the centers.
Yeah.
So his dad said, "No, son, you've got an incredible identity. Got an incredible force that I can give you ego access to, become emotionally clear with what you're going to say." And his uncle was like, "Here's what's worth supporting, kid. I've tried this, I've tried that. That didn't work. This is what works." That's what the third line does. So John F. Kennedy would have helped foster inside of Robert Kennedy Jr. this notion that, you try this, you try that, and you become the pro on what doesn't work. Don't worry about it, kid. You'll become a pro on what doesn't work. That's a thing. Figure it out. And so the elites and the forces didn't like what the Kennedys were doing, and they killed them both.
No, obvious. Yeah.
And
I
guarantee
the Kennedys have had a lot of
mysterious death.
Mysterious deaths, assassinations, attempted assassinations. We can go. The list can go on and on. We're not even listing all the Kennedys. So
no. This is the one.
There was definitely something that was going on within that family, because even like I was telling you, I think it was last night. If you go and look at John, which is JFK's son, who was really good friends with Trump, his magazine, George, that was out in the late 80s and early 90s.
Yep.
Yeah. It's got a lot of I don't know, futuristic stuff, headlines that it ties into a lot of what's going on right now, is all I got to say.
It sure does. And I'm glad his uncle and his father imparted some of that ego, emotional wisdom into him so that he wouldn't be so afraid of the confrontation and concerning himself on whether he's even good enough. He could simply generate his response and do what the moon drives him to do. Yeah. To directly provoke the other in a big fat FU match, and I'll write a book and I have all the details, and don't mess with me, and I'm a wrecking ball and you're going to learn to hate me. So that's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in a nutshell. When I say you, I'm talking about the people that we wouldn't want around in the first place.
Yeah.
We won't. We're all going to love the man, but I'm excited. This is he's now running for president, everybody, so get behind him. He's on the Democratic side. He's running in the straight up down. So he's being, traditional in this way. He's not trying to do a third party that I'm aware of, but that could change. He's mutative. The law may require a third party.
You know how I feel about that.
Well, I'm just saying, third is good.
I'm ready for that whole system to come crashing down so we don't even have to elect someone in there.
No, I totally hear you. There's going to be a crashing down process, but Washington, D.C. will always have an elected things to deal with our country's foreign affairs abroad, and to
Washington, D.C. is not even a part of the United States as far as I'm concerned.
Right. No, it's a district. If we were smart as a country, we might technically consider reabsorbing that, so that just like DeSantis took Disney out of its own special jurisdiction, we take D.C. out of its own special jurisdiction, maybe make it a quasi thing, and put in a de jure government again so we can get rid of that gold fringe flag.
It's just, man, you're going to have to send a force of light workers to go and do the transmuting on that ground.
It's happening.
Oh, I know. But
Yep.
Yeah, as far as like, well, by the time the elections come in and you get we change our status, we can't vote in this, can we?
Nope.
Okay.
I won't be voting, but I can still support people.
Yes, you
Because
can.
while the wrecking ball is happening, I would still far prefer to see somebody who's more of the cult of personality in there.
Absolutely.
During the let's let a good wrecker finish the wrecking rather than the nefarious wreckers that'll just keep trying to keep it going.
Wreck it all down.
Yeah.
Great job. Very informative. We'll see if we can get him tagged in this episode. And guys, if you want to tag, comment, whatever, help us out with that. See if we can get him to see it. That would be great. So
that would be amazing.
Fantastic job.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. A nice look into a hero, potential hero. Let's keep our eyes peeled.
Yep. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's episode. As always, please make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the show. If you haven't already, book your session. Couple sessions, kids sessions, single sessions. They're all the same price. You can find the links listed in the description. Get your butt in here and
stop not knowing.
Yeah, stop not knowing. But with that said, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about the show, and we look forward to seeing you guys on Sunday.
Absolutely. Talk to you then.
All right. Y'all have a wonderful evening, guys.
Bye.
Much love. Bye.